thought I was dating one man, but I was actually being shared, and I didn't even know it. There were two of them, both pretending to be him, and I was the only one who didn't know. My name is Zoe. I was 26 years old. I was in New York on a full scholarship, the first person in my family to make it that far. I didn't have money. I didn't have connections. What I had was a plan, a library card, and the ability to read a room faster than most people could read a menu. I had learned early that the world doesn't give you much for free, so when something felt too easy, I paid attention. I just didn't pay attention soon enough. It started on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was leaving a coffee shop near campus, moving too fast the way I always did. My bag slipped. Everything hit the floor, and then a pair of hands appeared beside mine, picking things up carefully, one by one, like he had all the time in the world. I looked up. Korean guy, my age, maybe a little older, dark eyes, easy expression. He handed me my earbuds first. "These look important," he said. "They are, thank you." He handed me the rest without making it a thing. No lingering. No waiting for me to be impressed. Just helped. And that was it. He didn't look at the menu board once. He already knew what he wanted. He went back to his table without looking back. I stood there a second longer than I needed to. Then, I left. I told myself I'd probably never see him again. I was wrong. But not in the way I expected. 2 days later, I was back at the same coffee shop, and he walked in. At least I thought it was him. Same face. Same build. Same dark eyes. But this time he stood at the counter a second longer than felt natural. Like he was deciding something. He saw me before I could look away. And he came over. "You were here the other day," he said. Something crossed his face when I mentioned the bag. Just a flash. Gone before I could name it. "Right," he said. "The bag." He sat down like it was the most natural thing in the world. His name was Jae-min. Graduate school. Business. New York. For 2 more years. He asked questions and listened to the answers. The way people do when they're genuinely interested. Or when they're very good at seeming like it. By the end of that conversation, I had given him my number. And I walked home thinking about the way he'd looked at me the first time. That unhurried, unperforming calm. Not knowing yet that those 2 moments belonged to 2 different people. We started dating 2 weeks later. Jae-min was everything a certain kind of person aspires to be. Thoughtful. Attentive. Never late. Never distracted. He remembered things I mentioned once in passing. He showed up with coffee on days I said I had early classes. He made me feel like I was the only person in whatever room we were in. It was intoxicating. And then, the small things. He laughed at my jokes, but not the same way every time. Sometimes immediately, before the punchline even landed. Sometimes a beat too late, like he was running a half-second behind. Some days he reached for my hand first, without thinking. Other days he kept this slight distance, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to touch me. Some days he felt like someone I'd known for years. Other days he felt like someone memorizing a role. I told myself it was moods. I told myself I was being too analytical. I told myself I was scared of something real. So I was inventing reasons to doubt it. I pushed it down. I got better and better at ignoring it. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, until I couldn't anymore. One night, I picked up his phone to check the time. He had left it unlocked. Messages I wasn't supposed to see. Different tone. Different cadence. Different vocabulary. Like 2 people writing from the same account. I asked him about it the next day. Casual. Like it didn't matter. He said he'd been helping a friend draft messages. Smiled when he said it, but it didn't sound like him. I believed him. Or, I told myself I did. It was 3 months in when it happened for the first time. We had plans on a Thursday evening. He showed up, and something was immediately, undeniably different. He was looser, less composed. He smiled before I even said anything. "You seem different today," I said. He tilted his head. "Maybe I'm just being honest today." That night was the best date we'd had. He was funny in a way I hadn't seen before. self-deprecating, genuinely warm. He asked about my family, my childhood, the things I was actually afraid of. Not surface things, real things. And when I talked, he didn't just listen. He heard me. I went home that night feeling something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. 3 days later, he was back to normal. Controlled, precise, slightly distant. I told myself I'd imagined the difference. I hadn't. This is the part I'm still trying to forgive myself for. Not for trusting him, for not trusting myself. Every time that warm, unhurried version appeared, I felt like I was finally seeing the real person. Every time the composed, calculated version came back, I told myself the warmth was real, and the distance was just his guard going up. I had it exactly backwards. The warm one was real. The calculated one was performing. But they were two different people, and I had no idea. 4 months in, Jaemin told me he had to go back to Seoul. 2 weeks. Family business. He said it with an ease I now understand was practiced. He left. 5 days later, he showed up at my door. He didn't explain why he was back. He held out a small plant in a terracotta pot. "I saw this and thought you'd like something that grows," he said. I stared at him. Jaemin had never said anything like that. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Better than I've been in a while, actually." He came in. We spent the evening talking about nothing important. At one point, he said, almost to himself, "I haven't felt this good in years." It's strange. I didn't think much of it then. He laughed at things that weren't that funny. He asked me what I wanted. Not from the relationship, not from life, just from that particular evening. Nobody had ever asked me that. I told him I wanted to sit and not think about anything difficult for a few hours. He said, "Okay, we can do that." And we did. And this time he reached for my hand like he'd been doing it his whole life. No hesitation, no calculating the distance first. I remember thinking, I have been waiting for this version of him the whole time. I didn't know yet that this version had a different name. His name was Jae-jun, Jaemin's identical twin brother. He had been sent in as a replacement while Jaemin was in Seoul. Not a gap fill, a plan. I didn't know any of that yet. The weeks that followed were the best of the whole thing. Jae-jun, who I still believed was Jaemin, was present in a way that made everything feel larger. He remembered not just the things I'd said, but the way I'd said them. He noticed when I was trying to seem fine. "You don't have to do that with me," he said once. "Do what?" "Make everything okay sounding." And one afternoon, when he thought I wasn't listening, I heard him say quietly to himself, "This was never supposed to happen." I asked what he meant. He said nothing, just smiled. But his eyes were doing something complicated. I filed it away, and I kept falling. What I didn't know was what was happening on the other side. While Jaemin was in Seoul, he told Jae-jun, "Go in. Keep her close while I'm gone." Jae-jun had agreed with conditions. He thought he could stay detached. He was wrong. Every day he spent with me, he became less able to treat it like an assignment. He started making excuses to see me outside the schedule, staying longer than he was supposed to. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, he stopped being able to lie to himself. But then Jaemin found out that it had stopped being an act. So he came back. Precise, composed, perfectly timed. I opened the door. The warmth was gone. Just like that, like someone had turned a dial. Same face, same eyes, completely different person. And somehow, no one else ever questioned it. Something in me that had been building for months finally reached the surface. "You seem different today," I said. He smiled. "Practiced. Perfect. Just tired from traveling." I nodded. But something in me had stopped believing. That's when I realized I wasn't imagining it. Something was wrong. Not different moods. Wrong. 3 days later, Jae-jun came back. He wasn't supposed to. He came on his own, without telling anyone. He stood outside my building in the cold for 20 minutes before he buzzed. I let him in. He sat down and for a long time said nothing. He looked undone, like someone who had decided to do something difficult and was running out of time to do it. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Okay." He looked at me. "There are two of us." I didn't understand. "What do you mean, two?" "There are two of us. Jaemin and me. We're twins. Identical twins." I stared at him. "We were both supposed to be part of this. You weren't supposed to choose one of us. You were supposed to feel both." The room went very quiet. "The person you've been seeing, sometimes it was my brother. Sometimes it was me." "That's not possible," I said. "I know how it sounds. You and your brother have been taking turns?" He didn't look away. "Yes." "Since the beginning?" "Yes." I stood up. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to be standing. "So none of this was real?" "Zoe, don't." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "How long have you known this was wrong?" He was quiet. "From the first time I came instead of him." "And you did it anyway?" "Yes." "Why are you telling me now?" He looked at me. "Because I can't keep doing it. Because every time I leave, I can't stop thinking about the fact that you don't know. And because," he stopped, "because I love you. And I can't say that while you don't know the truth." I turned away from him. "Get out," I said. He didn't move immediately. "Zoe, please." Then he left. I sat on the floor of my apartment for a long time after the door closed. Not crying, just processing. Every date, every conversation, every moment I thought I was finally understanding him. And the reason it felt different every time was because it literally was. Two different people, two different hearts. And I hadn't known. I kept asking myself, was it all a lie? Or was it just the beginning that was wrong? Because the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching, that wasn't fake. The night he asked me what I wanted from the evening. The plant on my windowsill, still alive. The way he reached for my hand without calculating the distance first. Those were real. I knew they were real. That was the most confusing part. Not that it had all been fake, but that some of it had been the realest thing I'd felt in years. And I didn't know which parts to keep and which to let go. A week passed after Jae-Jun left. I didn't contact either of them. One night, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. "Is this Zoe?" A woman's voice. Older, Korean accent, precise English. "Who is this?" "My grandsons have made a mess of something. And before you decide what to do, you deserve to understand why it started." I sat down slowly. Jae-Jun must have told them where to find me. Or maybe they'd always known. I think I've already figured out most of it. At least enough to know I wasn't crazy. I said it before I could second-guess myself. A pause. "Then you know more than they gave you credit for. Tell me the rest." She told me everything. The twins had been sick since they were born. Immune systems that didn't work the way they should. Every winter was a negotiation with their own bodies. Their grandfather had taken them to a shaman, someone the family had trusted for decades. The shaman had said something specific. That somewhere, a woman carried something rare. An antibody. A complement to what the twins lacked. That if a genuine bond formed, their bodies would stabilize. Not perfectly, but enough to change the course of their illness. The family had believed it. And then, 3 years ago, a genetics research firm confirmed it. A real marker. A real match. Me. "So I was a medical solution," I said. "You were never supposed to know. Because if I knew, I wouldn't agree." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. "Does it work?" I asked. A pause. "Jae-Jun has been healthy for the first time in his life since he met you." I closed my eyes. "And Jaemin?" He never let himself get close enough. Silence. "I wanted to give you time," she said. "Jae-Jun came to us 2 days ago. Told us he had told you everything. His father was furious. And you?" "I am 81 years old. I have watched my grandsons be sick their whole lives. And I have watched Jae-Jun be happy for the first time. I don't think you can put a plan around happiness and expect it to stay inside the lines. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking you to forgive them, she said. I'm asking you to understand that the thing Jae-jun feels that part was never the plan. She hung up. I sat with all of it for 3 more days after that. I thought about what it means to be chosen. We all want to be chosen, but we want to be chosen for who we are, not for what we carry without knowing. I thought about the small things I'd noticed and talked myself out of. The way one version of him ordered without looking at the menu. The way the other stood at the counter a second longer, like he was still deciding. The jokes that landed immediately and the jokes that needed a half second to land. The hand that reached for mine without thinking, and the hand that kept its distance. I had noticed every single one. I had just been too afraid to trust what I was seeing. And then a thought I couldn't shake. All those small differences I'd been filing away. They weren't accidents. They were a person, one specific person, trying not to disappear inside a plan he hadn't designed. On the 4th morning, I looked at the plant on my windowsill, still alive, still growing, despite everything. That was the moment I decided to stop pretending. I put on my coat. I walked to the address Jae-jun had mentioned once, in passing, like he hadn't expected me to use it. I stood outside. I almost left, twice. Then I buzzed. He answered immediately, like he'd been waiting. He came downstairs. He pushed open the door and stopped when he saw me. He looked like someone hoping for something he didn't trust yet. I spoke first. I won't forgive you. He nodded. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. He kept nodding. But I know what was real. He looked at me. The plant is still alive, I said. Something shifted in his face. I knew the difference between you two, I said. I think I knew from early on. I just kept telling myself I was imagining it, because it was easier than believing someone was lying to me. Zoe, I'm not here to make this easy for you, I said. I'm here because I'm choosing this, not because of your family's plan, not because of genetics or a fortune teller, because of the person you are when you're not trying to be anything. He reached out his hand, slowly, like a question. I looked at it, and suddenly, all those small differences that I'd been filing away for months weren't small anymore. They were the whole story. I took his hand. We stood there in the cold for a while, neither of us saying anything, just beginning. Not from the beginning. From here. From the truth. I've thought a lot about what it means to be chosen. We all want to be chosen. But we want to be chosen for who we are, not for what we carry without knowing. The truth is, what started as a plan became something nobody planned. Jae-jun didn't choose to fall in love with me. It happened in spite of everything he'd been told to do, and I didn't choose to understand him. I chose it because the alternative was letting something real disappear, because of how it started. Not everything that begins in a lie ends in one, and not everything that begins in a plan stays inside it. If someone you loved lied to you from the beginning, but their feelings were real, would you stay? Tell me honestly. Because I still don't know if I made the right choice.